In this module, we'll cover what it takes to install the PCA client. So to get started, you're going to need Active Client 7.1 at the time of this recording installed on your operating system. You will also need a personalized or an encoded PIV credential that has the PIV authentication certificate already loaded. The reason is the PCA Workstation will read your operator certificate, and it requires a smart card to even perform login or even to perform basic testing. So before you get started, make sure you have these two components, your active client as well as your personalized PIV credential. In terms of the installation sequence, what we'll do is we're going to go through the installer. I'll walk through installing this from end to end. There's a couple screens you'll be clicking through. I'll show you that as we go through this. After the install is complete, we'll plug in the peripherals to make sure everything is working from the driver and the hardware side. And then we'll step into the post-installation validation. What we'll do there is we will actually walk through a quick test to make sure the camera is operational, as well as the fingerprint reader is working properly. And then finally, after we're through with the installation validation, we'll go into configuring your PCA client for production. Specifically, we'll set some operating modes into a production setting, as well as point to your IDMS. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm on my workstation. In this case, it's Windows 7 with Service Pack 1, and I'm launching the installer. This is from my distribution package, and I have just saved it locally here. I'll read through my license agreement, and when I'm ready, I'll press proceed, or I'll click next. So here the installer is preparing for the installation of all the components. What's happening in the background, it's going to install the components for the camera, for the fingerprint readers, for the personal credential or PCA assistant itself, as well as the other libraries for the credential management system. So it takes a few seconds here for it to initialize. Okay, so it's already starting to install. So the first thing it's going to install is the camera software. You'll notice here that it will display a dialog. You can click next to move forward. I don't like a desktop icon, so I uncheck that. And then I just press the next button. This will automatically install everything for the camera, as well as some of the other software to make sure it interfaces properly with the application. So the next thing, it will finish up some of the installation elements, and then it will ask if I want to start the presenter application. I'll select no. We don't need to see that at this point. We just want to install the driver software. Okay, so it's finishing up the installation. You can just click unselect or unclick that launch presenter. So I just unclick that. So now the installer is going to go to the next piece. It's going to start installing the Suprema drivers for the fingerprint devices. So just watch as the dialogues pop up here. There's a couple items you'll have to click through. When you see that, you can go ahead and press next. And it's going to finish this up momentarily. So you can go ahead and press finish. And then it's going to ask you for another library. It should pop up a dialog. And you can just follow the same sequence and press next. And this takes a few seconds while it's going through the installation. Okay, there we go. So now after it's got that driver installed, it's going to start installing the binaries for the personal credential assistant. You can go ahead and press next. Actually, there's one more fingerprint reader it needs to install. There we go. So now it's moving on to the PCA binaries. It's registering all the DLLs, and then it will package up the other libraries for the credential management system all in one step. And then it creates the shortcut icons, and we'll finish up momentarily. And there we are. So all the elements for the PCA client or workstation have been installed. So now what we're going to do is start plugging in the peripherals. So the first thing is I'll plug in my fingerprint reader here. You can see from the bottom there's now a feedback showing that the real ScanD or that 2-print reader has been registered. A cool thing is we've also tested this in virtual machines, as you can see here. So this does run either native or in a virtual machine should you decide to do so. And then also we'll plug in the camera, as well as the next thing I'll do is plug in my smart card reader. So you can see there it's initializing everything, making sure all the drivers are installed. And then after this is ready, after all these drivers have been properly initialized, what we'll do then is start the app to test the actual camera and readers. So what I'm doing here is I'm launching the app. I have my PIV card or my encoded card already inserted, and then it's going to go through a couple initialization checks. So what we're doing here on after the first install is just making sure that our camera and our peripherals are operational. We're not doing a real capture or anything. We just want to make sure that our installation is correct and our hardware is working. So the install has a couple of fictitious users that we can use to test with. I'm using the test capture. These are all just part of the install process. I'll press confirm and then I'll press take photo. Here I can see my camera is working, but I also want to make sure that my face finding is working. So I've used a printed photo here, and then what I'll do is just go ahead and press photo, and you can see it's automatically located the face and adjusted it to the right proportions. I'll just go through here and select a few more of the attributes just because the client makes you do that. Again, I'm still just purely testing here to make sure all my peripherals are operational. Here I'm going to scan a quick document. I'm going to scan, in this case, I have a Metro card here in my lab, so I'll scan that. My entire goal here, again, is just to make sure that my camera is working and it will allow me to work within this documents capture module. So here I'll press scan document, I'll select the type, and then you can see it's located and the camera's working to scan my document. I'll do the next thing, and then I'll put my camera a little closer to my document, and then you'll see that the image is larger after I've done so. And the next thing I want to do is test my fingerprint reader. I want to do this for two reasons. I want to make sure that the device is operational, as well as the fingerprints are being segmented and scored. And I can see that they are. So my fingerprints are being captured. They're also being separated, as well as they're being scored. You can see the little numbers there. And then I'll just go and capture the rest just to make sure I go through the entire process. And then I'll press next. It's important here that you press next because you want to make sure that the capture was successful, and then you can press OK and it submits it. It's not submitting anywhere, so don't get nervous. It's just testing at this point. And then you can press OK and close that. So what we want to do now is, now that we verified our fingerprint reader and camera is operational, let's go and set our production configurations. You'll see here I'll go to the site and open up the PCA directory, and then I'll open up the personal credential configuration in this with WordPad. I just like WordPad because it gives me a little bit more control on what I can see. You can also use Notepad, but I prefer WordPad. Okay, so what I'll do now is I will scroll down and you'll see me look into the operating mode. Right now it's delivered what we call our demo mode, and that just allows you to test without having to connect to anything real. After you've performed your validation, put the run mode to production, and that will take you out of your calibration mode and put you into a production mode where you will be querying or interacting with the IDMS in real time. Here I'll put again in the lab here, I'm just working with the DNS that's local to me. So I'm putting in the DNS of our test IDMS, and my client will then connect to that. Also, I was testing with a mock or a simulator for my printer. You want to put real there so you're talking to a real printer and it's reading the card real time. And then you can also set CSN value so you're not simulating one. So that's it. The PCA installation is complete. As you saw, we ran through the install, we validated the peripherals were working properly, and then we set the configurations. Thank you very much.